Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. First, John, I have to tell you that Apple started on April 1st, 1976. So you have a good history there. And Jeff, I have to tell you that it's going to get a lot more complex making your daughter happy. Trust me, when I have a 14-year-old, man, you're going to rue the day that she had a phone. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I work for Apple, a company that's represented in this room, twice in my life. First time from 1983 to 1987, I was Apple's second software evangelist. So my job was to convince people to write Macintosh software and to create Macintosh hardware products. And this meant that I worked in the Macintosh division, which this is a picture of most of the Macintosh division around 1984. And I'm in the upper left-hand corner of this picture. You can barely see me. Had I anticipated how successful Apple would be, I would have stood in the front of this picture. But I blew it. Who the hell knew? And of course, in the front is Steve Jobs kneeling, holding a Macintosh 128K. This is a historical photo because that is literally the only time Steve Jobs ever got on his knees for anybody. Trust me, if you're a carrier, you would understand this. So now this is probably the largest collection of egomaniacs in the history of California. Maybe you'll break that record someday. And you know, it was a great group of people. I had a fantastic time. I could tell you some stories. So everybody wants a Steve Jobs story. So just as an indication of what it was like to work for him, one day I was working in my cubicle, and he comes up with a stranger. And he says, "Guy, what do you think of this company called Knoware, Knoware? It was knowledge software, truncated educational software company." So I start going into my mode of, well, it's a mediocre company, mediocre products, drill in practice, doesn't take advantage of graphics, color, video, you know, anything, mouse, anything like that. So it's really not strategic for Apple. And he says, "I want you to meet the CEO of Knoware." so that's what it was like working for Steve. And actually, I gave the right answer because Steve was a very binary person. You were either great or crap, and there was nothing in between. So that's the day I passed the test. If I had told him that Knoware had great products, which he probably knew it wasn't true, I would have failed the Steve Jobs test, and I would have been thrown out, actually. So I actually passed the test that day. So this is the Macintosh division. You know, back then the company was divided into two large groups. There was the Apple II division, which was making all the money because it was shipping. And there was the Macintosh division, which was spending all the money because we were trying to finish Macintosh. If you looked at the Apple P&L, the P was Apple II and the L was Macintosh. We were such bad people, though, we would not let Apple II employees into this building. So if you can imagine working for a company where you're not allowed into a building of the same company. And that's what it was like because we were so arrogant. And the Apple II division, of course, came up with a great joke about us, which is how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? The answer is one. Macintosh division employee holds up the light bulb and expects the universe to revolve around him. For those of you who are Windows users, the Microsoft version of this joke is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is none, because Bill Gates has declared darkness the new standard. So, you know, you can take the evangelist out of Apple. You can't take the Apple out of the evangelist. So to this day, I'm an Apple believer. I use a Macintosh. I use iPhone, iPad, everything. Not a watch, though. I use everything but a watch. And so I've had a long career. And much of my career was as an evangelist. I'm an evangelist today for a company called Canva, based in Sydney, Australia. It's in the business of democratizing design. And so as an evangelist for Canva, as an evangelist for Apple, I started several software companies. I learned one valuable thing, which I think everybody in this room shares, that it is about the customer experience. It is about enchanting people. I define enchantment as the ability to influence and persuade people to change their hearts and minds and actions. So I've been doing this, not that I've studied it or planned it necessarily, since about 1980 or so. I started, believe it or not, in the jewelry business, not the tech business. And the jewelry business is a business of enchantment. because I work for a jewelry manufacturer that sold to high-end jewelry stores. And the jewelry business uses very expensive products, gold and diamonds, but they are still commodities. So at some level, it's all about enchanting people with your design in jewelry. So I've had to enchant people my whole life, and I decided to codify what I've learned about enchantment. I was particularly inspired by How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which is a great, great book. So this is kind of my version of this book. So, and Tiffany from Salesforce is going to follow me after the break, and she already put pressure on me because she told me that she's going to riff off something I'm going to say to introduce herself, so I have to be sure to say that, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. So what you're going to see is that I use a top 10 format. And the reason I use a top 10 format is because I've seen so many high-tech speakers, and pretty much most of them suck. And they go long, and that is a deadly combination. You know, if you suck and you're short, it's okay. And if you're great and you're long, it's okay. But if you suck and go long, that's just a bad combination. It's like being stupid and arrogant, you know? And so what I do is I always use the top 10 format, so that in case you think I suck, you know about how much longer I suck, because I have 10 key points. So even without you holding up the sign. So that's, yeah, she's holding up 5 minutes left, yeah. So I'm going to use a top 10 format to explain the art of enchantment. And I think many of you already embody this. I had a very entertaining breakfast this morning. I sat next to Blue Shield, and I got the whole scoop there, and sat next to a comrade from Apple, and now I know how to, you know, beat the system, go right to the genius. So I've had to learn how to enchant, and I hope I can pass some skills on to you. The first thing that I learned about enchantment is that if you or your company wants to enchant people and to persuade them and change their hearts and minds and actions, you have to be likable, because very seldom are you successful with enchanting people if you are not likable. I mean, think about it. Have you ever been enchanted by someone you didn't like? You may have been bludgeoned. You may have been forced. You may have been bought off, but you weren't enchanted unless you liked the person. And I think this is a great example of enchantment. This is Richard Branson. And the scenario here is that he and I were in Moscow. We're in the speaker ready room. He comes up to me. He says, "Guy, do you fly on Virgin?" I said, "Well, Richard, you know, I'm global services for United. When you are global service for United, like the waters part, the skies, you know, clear up, angels start singing. It's a very different experience. So I really don't want to risk my global status with United." And when I said that, he got down on his knees and he started polishing my shoes with his jacket. This is the moment I started flying on Virgin. And this is a really big moment for me, because I thought, you know, this is a billionaire, Sir Richard Branson, and he got down on his knees so I would start flying Virgin. This is likability. And I want to tell you that likability starts with a great smile. So this is a Pan Am smile. A Pan Am smile focuses on the jaw. It's as if you're holding a pencil between your teeth. You're grinning and bearing, like, "Hi, welcome to Pan Am." You know, you're not really happy to see the customers. So if you want a great smile, an enchanting smile, it's called a Duchenne smile. And the key to a great smile is not the jaw, it's the eyes. It's the eyes. You actually want crow's feet. So if you remember nothing else from this incredible conference, remember, you want crow's feet. No more Botox, no more plastic surgery, that reduces costs for you. You want
Healthcare, not that I'm getting Botox.
Yeah, no. God, poor Blue Shield. They got like crapped on twice already. My God. So it is all about crow's feet. You want crow's feet. This is Richard Branson. That's the Grand Canyon of crow's feet, right? You want crow's feet. That's what shows you have a true Duchenne smile. Next thing is to learn to accept others for what you are. If you think about it, have you been enchanted by someone that you detected didn't accept you for what you are? You know, wrong gender, wrong sexual orientation, wrong religion, wrong political party, wrong something. You know, if you change, they would like you more. Maybe you have too much jewelry in your face. If you want to be enchanting, you learn to accept people for what they are and try not to change people. Third thing is you default to yes. That is, you're always thinking, yes, how can I help you? Many companies and many people go through life always trying to avoid being taken advantage of. And that is a very negative attitude, and I think it's suboptimal. I've tried to default to yes my whole life, and I'll tell you something, it has led to opportunities, to partnerships, to relationships, to sales, to many, many things that would have never gotten off the ground if I were defaulting to no. I think the upside of defaulting to yes far exceeds the downside of always worrying about being taken advantage of. Default to yes. Always be wondering, yes, how can I help you? Second key pillar of enchantment is to achieve trustworthiness, because you can be liked but still not trusted, right? You could like Charlie Sheen. That doesn't mean you trust Charlie Sheen. There's a big difference. So trustworthiness is the second big pillar. And I would say that one of the great examples of trustworthiness is Zappos. And Zappos achieved trustworthiness because it executed this philosophy, which is it trusted first. It didn't have the attitude, well, you know, if the customers prove that they're trustworthy, then we'll trust them. It had completely a different attitude. It was, we trust the customers. They are good until proven bad. And that is key to trustworthiness. The onus, the burden is upon us. It's upon your companies to trust people first. If you had told me that there's a company that's going to sell shoes online, first of all, I would have told you that you're nuts. That you could sell books this way, you could sell DVDs this way, you could sell anything that, you know, was sort of in a standard package. You could, no spoilage, no color, no smell, no nothing, right? All right, a book you can do. Shoes, you're going to sell shoes to women? Shoes that they want to see and touch and put on and smell? How are you going to sell shoes that way? No can do. Obviously, I was completely wrong. And I think one of the main reasons that Zappos has succeeded is because it trusted women first. So women came to trust Zappos. And the most obvious way that Zappos trusted women first is their incredible return policy, which is they will pay shipping both ways. If you don't like the shoe, stick it in a box, send it back at our expense. That's very different from calling up a company, getting an RMA, paying for the shipping back. It's so bland. I mean, at my house, we have a Zappos box coming in once a week, right? Once a week, a slightly smaller box goes back out. But it's that kind of flow. And in doing research about Zappos, I discovered the world's most amazing return policy. Unfortunately, we just missed it this year, but I'm telling you 3.5 years in advance that at Zappos, if you purchase a shoe in a leap year, on February 29th, you have 4 years to return that shoe. Now that's a policy. That is a policy. 4-year return policy. That's trust. Next thing is to become a baker, not an eater. A baker and an eater sees the world very differently. An eater says, ha, you eat the pie, I don't eat the pie. The more you eat, the less I eat. A baker says, I can bake more pies, I can bake bigger pies, I can bake more desserts. Bakers are more trustworthy than eaters because eaters see the world as a zero-sum game. Bakers see the world as everybody can have more dessert. Become a baker, not an eater. Next thing is to find something to agree on. You know, when you're in these throes of discussions with customers, and you want to form an enchanting relationship, you want to build trust, you need to find something to agree on. In a interpersonal way, to use a slightly different example, you know, you need to find something that you and the other person share in common. One of the great tools for this, of course, is LinkedIn. Because you go to LinkedIn and you find out what school the person went to, where the person worked, who you overlapped with. You find an overlap in interest, something. You need to find something to agree on. It could be football, it could be soccer, it could be a dislike of Donald Trump. It could be a lot of different things. But you need to find something to agree on. With Apple, we tried to make Macintosh in the mid-'80s spreadsheet database and word processing machine. We were 0 for 3, quite honestly. But finally, we found something that the Apple and the market agreed on, which is Macintosh is great for desktop publishing, right? Aldus PageMaker, PostScript, and a laser printer created desktop publishing. No desktop publishing, no Apple today. Desktop publishing saved Apple. That was the first place that Apple and the marketplace agreed that Macintosh had a killer app, had a killer advantage. And I think that Really, I think desktop publishing and PageMaker was a gift from God to Apple. Really, it saved Apple. And I believe in God. And one of the main reasons I believe in God is there is no other explanation for Apple's continued survival than the existence of God. All due respect, Seth. So, you got to find something to agree on. This, you may be wondering, what the hell does this picture have to do with agreeing on something? So the apocryphal story is that two Latin American countries having a diplomatic crisis. They meet in a neutral third country. They make no progress in negotiation for days. Chief negotiator of one country says to the other country, I have to return on Friday because I promised my wife I would take her to the opera. He goes on to explain, I hate the opera. My wife forces me to take her to the opera. Chief diplomat of the other country, who has agreed with nothing the whole week, finally says, oh, your wife forces you to take her to the opera too? My wife does the same thing. I also hate the opera. They finally found something to agree on to build a relationship to solve the diplomatic crisis. So you need to find something to agree on. And I would make the case that LinkedIn is the world's most powerful tool for this in a P2P relationship. Next thing is you need to achieve excellence. This is the third pillar of enchantment. So, I can tell you, in my career, being an entrepreneur, being a marketing person, being an evangelist, I have tried to evangelize and enchant people with crap, and I have tried with great stuff. And let me tell you, it is a lot easier with great stuff than crap. It's very hard to evangelize people with crap. So this is called Guy's Golden Touch. Guy's Golden Touch is not whatever I touch turns to gold. Guy's Golden Touch is whatever is gold, Guy touches. That's the key to evangelize great stuff. So what makes up great stuff? First of all, great stuff is deep. Lots of features, lots of functionality. The company has anticipated what you need as you go up this curve, right? It's deep. This is a deep sandal. This sandal has twice the functionality of any other sandal in the world, because not only does it protect your feet, this clip here is to open beer bottles. It's twice the functionality and depth of any other sandal in the world. Great products, great services are also intelligent. When you look at this, you say, this company was smart. This company figured out that I have a pain point, and it's figured out a solution. This is a GT500 Shelby Mustang. It has 650 horsepower. I'm 62 years old. I would love to buy one of these cars to overcome my feelings of inadequacy and impotency as I get into the later years of my life, right? What better way for a man to compensate for these feelings of inadequacy than to buy a badass Mustang like this? I would love to do this, but I have 4 children. Of the 4 children, 2 are already drivers, both boys. And the concept of either of those boys driving a Mustang with 650 horsepower when I'm traveling just scares the crap out of me. I think, frankly, it's kind of immoral if I would unleash them upon society in a 650 horsepower car. But Mustang, Ford, has a very intelligent product called the My Key. And what the My Key enables you to do is program the top speed of the car into the key. So that's right, Dad is out of town, and we have his Mustang. But he left the key, and the key is programmed to go no faster than 55 miles an hour. That is an intelligent product. Next thing is that great products, great services, great companies are complete. And not only deep, they're broad. I mean, think of Google, right? So it's search, it's analytics, it's social media, it's photos, it's apps, it's hosting, the totality of Google, the totality of Amazon. It's not just DVDs and books. It's everything. Great products and services and companies are also empowering. This is a MacBook Pro. So I'll explain the difference between a Macintosh and a Windows machine. So this is a MacBook Pro. It looks like a piece of aluminum carved by Tibetan monks from a solid block of aluminum. This computer makes you more enchanting. It makes you more creative and more productive. This is a MacBook Pro Air, or MacBook Air. By contrast, some of you may use Windows, and you're using a big, thick, black, ugly plastic computer, right? It's not enchanting. It doesn't make you feel better, right? You have to fight it. It's either you or the computer. For example, if you want to print, it might not agree, right? One of you is going to win. It is a zero-sum game. great products, great services empower you. They make you more creative, more productive. And finally, there's somebody cared about the design. This is an Eames chair. Someone cared about the human interface. Someone cared about the user interface. It's part of the customer experience. That's why brands that have achieved this kind of depth and completeness and elegance and empowerment have much higher margins. It's because they care about elegance. Next thing is you launch. The key to an enchanting launch, I think, is to tell a story. You heard the story of this company this morning. All right. And so what most tech companies do is they stand up and they say, we have patent pending, curve jumping, paradigm shifting, enterprise class, scalable product or service. Everybody says that. The problem is that literally everybody says that. And that's the 9 o'clock pitch, the 10 o'clock pitch, and the 11 o'clock pitch. If you ever encounter this, or if you're ever pitching your company, do what I call the opposite test, which is ask yourself, is your competition saying the opposite of what you're saying? Because if it is, then you are saying something different. But if it's not, you're all saying the same thing. So if you're in the software business, right, if you say we have patent pending, curve jumping, paradigm shifting, enterprise, scalable product or service, is fast, easy to use, intuitive, is your competition saying we have a slow, buggy piece of crap that's hard to use? Probably not. So I think instead of using those adjectives, you should tell a story. The story of how this company started with this phone call, this 4-minute phone call. The story of two guys in a garage saying, well, why is it that to use a computer, you have to work for a large company, you have to work for the government, you have to be at a university. Why can't computers be smaller and cheaper and easier to use? So we started Apple. The story of eBay is, this is the story of eBay. The story of eBay is that Pierre Majar's girlfriend was a toy collector. She collected Pez dispensers. She wanted a way to sell Pez dispensers online. There was no way for her to do that. So he started eBay to enable his girlfriend to sell her toy collection online. By the way, that is a total bullshit story. But it is a great story. It is a great story. I mean, imagine if Pierre Majar went around and saying, well, my vision for eBay at the very beginning was to create a patent pending, curve jumping, enterprise, scalable, perfect market where marginal demand and marginal cost could intersect for perfect market clearing price. Like, what the hell did he just say? It's a much better story. He said, my girlfriend wanted to sell Pez dispensers. I created this place where she sells Pez dispensers. Now today people buy Testarossas and Ferraris, and they buy companies on eBay. That's the business we're in. Tell a story. Next thing is to plant many seeds. I think when you introduce something today, there used to be this assumption that the world is top-down, right? You sucked up to the Wall Street Journal, you sucked up to Verge, Wired, TechCrunch. They wrote an article, they told all the great unwashed masses what to do. Wall Street Journal tells you to use Lotus 1, 2, 3. Okay, you get off VisiCalc, you go to, I hope you guys are old enough to realize what these are. you go from VisiCalc, you go to 1, 2, 3. Wall Street Journal makes Lotus 1, 2, 3. I think that world is gone now because of social media. And now it's Lonely Boy 15. Lonely Boy 15 started to use Snapchat, or Lonely Boy 15 started to use Airbnb, or Lonely Boy 15 still lives with his mother, right? Sleeping on Buzz Lightyear sheets, doesn't work for the Wall Street Journal, doesn't have 25 million followers, but there's a lot of Lonely Boy 15s. And so in this world of Lonely Boy 15s, you have to plant a lot of seeds because it's easy to find the tech reporter for the Wall Street Journal. It's very hard to find Lonely Boy 15. Lonely Boy 15 has to find you. And so you need to plant a lot of seeds. Next thing you do is to use salient points. So I think that people over-intellectualize enchantment and evangelism and marketing, and they try to use like industry jargon when in fact people have much more salient needs. So on the left side, you see the kind of stuff that companies and industries like to use. On the right side, you see what people really care about. So if you're in the food business, you describe whatever you have in the bag in terms of calories. This bag of chips has 500 calories. Question is, what the hell is a calorie? Obviously, it's a unit of measure, but what does that mean in real life? You know how much more useful it would be if you went to a market and you turned over a bag of chips and it says, if you eat this bag of chips, you must run 25 miles. That is a much better way to tell you what's in the bag. In the not-for-profits business, lots of people like to talk in terms of this is the size of our fund. Our fund is $10 million, $100 million. But you know, if you're a donor, you don't care about the size of the fund. That's not the metric you care about. You care about if I give $500 to you, you can feed a family in Ethiopia for a year. That's what matters to a donor. It's months of food. And in the gadget business, I refuse to believe that people wake up in the morning and say, you know what, man, my life would be complete if I had 32 gigabytes of storage. They wake up in the morning saying, I want something that's cool and thin and beautiful that can hold 100,000 songs, 10,000 movies, and 200,000 books. They're thinking in terms of books and movies and songs. They're not thinking in terms of gigabytes. What exactly is a gigabyte? So I suggest that you use the stuff on the right side to describe what you do when you introduce. Next thing is to overcome resistance to your enchantment. I would make the case that the more innovative your product or service, the more resistance you will encounter. Now, this is an example of a company overcoming resistance. So Nintendo had a problem in the mid-'80s because the electronic game business was severely tarnished. Retailers did not want to stock electronic games anymore. So what it did is it added a robot to its electronic game and repositioned it as an educational toy. So it positioned this as educational toy to learn robotics. Okay? So imagine the difference between your child asking you for an electronic game to shoot stuff up versus an educational toy to learn robotics. That's why this succeeded. It's an educational toy to learn robotics. So more ways to overcome resistance. Apple. I had nothing to do with this. I don't even know if it was planned, but I'm telling you that one of the key success points for the iPod was the white earbud. Because you noticed white earbuds because nobody else had white earbuds. So you pretty soon realized that white earbud equals iPod. So the more you saw a white earbud, the more comfortable you were buying with an iPod because clearly it was being embraced and adopted. So the more white earbuds, the more people bought iPods. The more people who bought iPods, the more white earbuds. It became this upward spiral. So this was social proof. Man, lots of people walking around with white earbuds. iPod must be good. I should buy one. Provide social proof. Next thing is to use a data set to change a mindset. So this is something that's very useful when you're dealing with people who are skeptical or ignorant. They believe something wrong, and you're trying to change their mind. So this is a case where a graph plots out how many children a woman has and how long people live in that country. So this is age, from 0 to 80 years, and this is children, up to 8.5 children. So what this is saying that in 1950, there's two pockets. Western world, where you live a long life with few children. Every place else, short life, lots of children. 40 years here, 70 years there, right? 6 kids here, 2 kids there. This is 1950. 1950. I would make the case that to this day, many people still believe this. That in other parts of the world, they have lots of kids and they all die young. And this is not the case. So now we're going to fast forward through to 2009. And you'll see that by the time we get to 2009, pretty much the whole world is in the same corner. We all have about 2.5 kids and we all live about 75 years. India, Pakistan, everybody's up in that corner. The only people who are not in that corner is the continent of Africa. And this is 2009, 7 years ago. Maybe even this has changed. So I'm not trying to lecture you about world demographics and population changes. I'm trying to illustrate a technique that, the animation of data is a very, very powerful way to educate people. If I were a carrier, for example, and I wanted to prove that I had more bars in more places, right? I would animate it. I would show, LTE in 2000 was in this many places, and LTE in 2015 was in this many places, and I would animate that data, and I would show all of the United States covered by LTE. I would use a data set to change a mindset. Next thing is to be sure you enchant all the influencers. I think many people assume it's the father that makes the decision. You would be so wrong. It's the mother, really. It's the mother. Maybe it's the sister, maybe it's the grandfather, and in my family, and maybe even Jeff's, it's the daughter, right? So I don't know about any of you dads, but I can tell you from my perspective, my life is focused on making my daughter happy. My happiness is gated by her happiness. If she's happy, I can possibly be happy. If she's not happy, I cannot be happy. Okay? So you want to make me enchanted, you want to influence and persuade and change my mind? Get to me through my daughter. That's the most powerful way to change me. And I'll tell you, as proof of this, I have been to not one, but 2 Justin Bieber concerts for her. Okay? How many have you gone to? That day is coming. That day is coming. That day is coming. Rue the day. That day is coming. Okay, number 6 is how to make your enchantment endure. A very good example of this is the Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead has endured for decades. And why is that? Well, one reason is because they take care of their customers. They trust their customers. They default to yes. At a Grateful Dead concert, it used to be that there was an area called tapers. And so they would have a special area set aside for people to record the concert. You know, wrap your mind around that, right? Every place else is trying to prevent you from pirating the music. The Grateful Dead is trying to encourage you to record the music and then spread the music. They want their most hardcore fans, the people who came to the concert, to become their evangelists. What a concept. That's why the Grateful Dead has endured. So, next thing is to build an ecosystem. Of all audiences, you would understand this. You're part of this ecosystem, right? And an ecosystem contains consultants, developers, resellers, user groups, websites, online sites, and conferences. It's the totality. You know, when you have an ecosystem, the ecosystem does things you cannot do, you should not do, you don't want to do. The ecosystem makes you stronger because there's more people pulling for you. The ecosystem fills out holes in your own product offering. Ecosystem is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Try to build an ecosystem. Next thing is to evoke reciprocation. So in the 1930s, Italy invaded Ethiopia. When Italy invaded Ethiopia, basically the world ignored Ethiopia. The only country that supported Ethiopia when that happened was Mexico. Okay? So about 80 or 90 years go by, there's a big earthquake in Mexico, and the Ethiopians collect money and send it to the Mexicans because Mexico helped 90 years earlier. Now, you'd think, okay, you know, that's pretty impressive. 90 years, they remembered, they reciprocated. But you also have to understand that at the time that Ethiopia was collecting money to send to Mexico, Ethiopia was in the middle of a famine. So they were literally starving to death. But they had such a strong feeling of reciprocation that even though they were starving, they collected money to send to Mexico because Mexico helped them when the Italians invaded them. Similar story, right after the Civil War, the people of New York bought the people of Columbia, South Carolina, a fire truck. The first one was on a ship that sank, so they had to buy them another fire truck. And they did this because they found out that people in South Carolina were using bucket brigades to fight fires in the city. So the fire truck gets there, and then fast forward 150 years or so, and now, guess what? 9/11 happens. And the people of South Carolina raised more than $500,000 and bought the people of New York a fire truck. That's how long reciprocation lasts. That's how you make your enchantment last. You invoke reciprocation. So, this book is a great book, highly recommended by Bob Cialdini. It's about influence and persuasion. Okay? I'll give you 2 power tips about reciprocation from this book. So, you could be my subject. So pretend that I do something for you. All right, I default to yes. I accept you for what you are. You know, I think like a baker, not an eater. And I do something for her. Okay? So she thanks me. So power tip number 1 is, what's the optimal response when she thanks me? It is not you're welcome. It is, I know you would do the same for me. I know you would do the same for me. Best answer ever. 2 things are occurring here. I'm telling her she's a good person. I know you're going to do this for me, right? She's a good person. She's going to reciprocate. I'm heaping praise upon you. I know you'll do the same for me. What else am I telling her? I'm telling her, I know you will do the same for me. That's why it's optimal. Second power tip is, what do I do? Now I've established that she owes me something. What do I do? Do I say, forget about it, don't worry about it? No, the ideal thing to do is now tell her how to repay me. Because she may want me to do more for her. And I, as a baker, a defaulter to yes, I am happy to do more for her, but I'm not clairvoyant. I don't know what she wants done. So we're stuck. She won't ask me, and I don't know. So the best thing I can do is tell her, this is how you can repay me. Give me another night in the Four Seasons, San Francisco. Whatever it is. Tell her how to repay me so she can repay me, clear the decks, and then she can ask me to do more. That's the power answer. I know you would do the same for me. Tell her how to repay. Next thing is that great enchanters are great presenters. You need to be able to pitch and speak if you want to enchant. The key to this is to customize the first minute or so, okay? To show that you understand where you are, that you understand the context, you understand what happened. I know you had a cooking class last night. I know the chicken was pounded to death last night. Okay? I know all this. I heard the story about how the chicken got slaughtered last night. All right? So I'm trying to customize the intro. I'm trying to clearly I was paying attention when John said you started on April Fool's Day because I brought in the story that Apple was started on April Fool's Day. You're customizing the intro. A lot of times I do it with pictures. So this is a picture of an LG washer and dryer. I was in Brazil speaking to the LG management, and I figured out, guy, you own an LG washer and dryer. You should show them your LG washer and dryer. But I was already in Brazil. I don't carry pictures of my washer and dryer. You might find that surprising. So, but I'm the guy who understands enchantment, right? So I was going to enable my children to pay me back. So I sent a text message to my two boys, the two boys I don't want driving the Mustang. I said, turn off that EA game that I bought you, right? On that Xbox and on that, Sony PlayStation that I bought you. And go downstairs in the house that I bought you. Take the iPhones that I bought you. Take a picture of the washer and dryer that I bought you. I need this picture to make a speech to LG. Speech is coming up in an hour. I need it right away. Okay, boys? Send it to two. Backup plan, right? Plan A, plan B. So for those of you with teenage boys, you know that after half an hour, what happens? Nothing. Exactly. Right. So now I have to follow up. Now, to set the stage for the next slide, older boy is Nick, younger boy is Noah. Nick, Noah, okay? So I sent a message to Nick Kawasaki. Nick, did you get my text messages? Nick says, oh yeah, Noah said he got the message too, and he's going to go take the pictures of the LG washer dryer. And by the way, since you're talking to LG, can you get us some free TV? Yeah. Welcome to my life. This is why I no longer tell my children who I'm speaking to, okay? So then there's defaulting to yes, there's baking, not eating. There's also stupidity. So you see my answer. I don't think so. Customize the intro. Next thing is an example of picture, another picture. So this is me in Red Square. And I started off this picture in Russia, my speech in Russia with this picture. And I said, wow, you Russians, I had no idea. You really have big balls in Russia, right? And this is before Ukraine, okay? But this is the best illustration of this concept. This is me in the Grand Bazaar of Istanbul. So I spoke to Turkcell, and I opened up with this, and I said, wow, this is my picture. I love the bazaar. I spent a lot of time there. This is me in a fez. So, look at this picture. For example, this picture also depicts enchantment. This is the shop owner. It's hard to see, but that guy has a Duchenne smile. That guy is happy. You know what that guy's thinking? That guy's thinking, this dumbass American is going to buy this fez. Yeah. This stinking fez has been in my family shop for 3 generations. I finally found somebody stupid enough to buy this fez. Well, let's just say when you start a speech for Turkcell in Istanbul, showing you wearing a fez in the Grand Bazaar, the speech goes well. Okay, customize the intro. Again, LinkedIn, world's best tools for customizing an intro. Next thing is to sell your dream. When you make a presentation, again, it's not about patent pending, curve jumping, power shifting, paradigm shifting, enterprise class scalable product or service. It is about the dream of productivity, of creativity, of enchanting your customers with this kind of technology from this company. It's a dream. It's a dream. When Steve Jobs introduced a new iPhone, he didn't stand up at Moscone and say, well, today we're introducing, iPhone 6. Today's iPhone 6 represents a $188 worth of parts manufactured under somewhat suspect conditions in China. Okay? That's not how he positioned an iPhone. He positioned an iPhone as thin and beautiful, fast, creative, sexy. It'll change your life, right? Sell your dream. Next thing is the Guy Kawasaki rule of PowerPoint, which is the ideal number of slides is 10. 10. You'd be lucky to get 10 points across in a presentation. Now, you may be skeptical. You say, Guy, you're such a hypocrite. You're way past number 10, right? This is like number 40 right now. I'll tell you why. You are not me, okay? 10. You guys are 10. Next point. Next point. You should be able to give these 10 slides in 20 minutes. I understand most meetings are an hour, but to my utter disdain, to this day, 90% of the world uses Windows laptops, right? And I know when somebody walks in a room with a Windows laptop, you need to allocate 40 minutes for that person to make it work with the projector. Third point is the ideal font size is 30 points. 30 points. Very good algorithm for figuring out the ideal font size. Figure out who the oldest person is in the audience, divide his or her age by 2. 60-year-old people, 30 points. 50-year-old, 25 points. Someday you may be pitching a 16-year-old venture capitalist. That day use the 8-point font, okay? But until that day, 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. And I'll give you one more power tip. One more power tip. And I realize you guys didn't do it, so this is a power tip you could use. You should change your background to black and your font to white. Because a black background with a white font is easier to read. It also hides where the slide ends and the other part of the projection begins. This is just one black thing. There's no frame around it. And so changing a background to black, I swear, just doubles the perceived quality of a presentation. Just doing that. And I'll tell you a funny story. So one day, I meet with this entrepreneur. It's like 11 in the morning. He says, Guy, I just pitched my company and I got 3 more hours before my next pitch. Do you have any tips for me about how to make my presentation better? And this guy was from Atlanta. He was a black entrepreneur. And I said to him, well, is your background black? And he goes, yeah, well, I'm from Atlanta. I'm from a, mixed race background. I said, no, not your DNA. Is your PowerPoint background black? So anyway, you got to be careful what you ask. So I just make a suggestion to you guys. Consider a black background, okay? Number 8 is to use technology. We are in a great time to enchant people. I mean, think of Dale Carnegie. Best thing he could do in 1930 is what? Rent the New York Hilton ballroom? What could he do? No fax, no phone, no nothing. We have freaking social media, for crying out loud. Fast, free, and ubiquitous. So the key to using technology, like the firm that we're guests of, is that first of all, you have to remove the speed bumps. This is a screenshot of CAPTCHA. So everybody has encountered CAPTCHA. We all know what the purpose of CAPTCHA is. It is to reduce your customer count, right? This is when you want to get rid of people, so you put CAPTCHA in front of them. It's very effective. So what is that word? How many of you know what language that word is? Hebrew. That's right. You have a Hebrew keyboard handy? Yeah. So, okay, so none of you could get past this CAPTCHA. Right? Why don't you just say, don't register. Just continue to use our website as a guest. We don't want your email address. We don't want to have interaction. We don't want to engage. We don't want loyalty. We don't want CX, anything. We don't want IVR. We just want you to figure out, this is the Hebrew word for obstacle. If you only had a Hebrew keyboard, you could be our customer too. What an honor it would be. So here's an example of a company that has removed the speed bump. This is Sungevity. So they're in the business of residential solar panels. So in the home renovation construction business, one of the speed bumps is setting up a time where the company comes out and looks at your roof and measures and all this kind of stuff. You got to be there. They got to show up. You have to set the time, all that. Longevity is a much better way. They ask you for your home address. They look you up on a satellite photo. And from the satellite photo, they can mock up your house, what the solar panel would look like, how big it would be, how much it would cost, and about how much power. They know which way is north, south, east, and west. They can tell you if your trees are going to get in the way. This is removing a huge speed bump. So can you remove speed bumps? Can you remove speed bumps? Next thing is to provide value with social media. First thing is you should always provide information, like what just happened, what does it mean, this insights. And then finally, assistance. You provide those three things on social media, you will own social media. It's all about that. I like to call this the Wikipedia and NPR model. NPR, every once in a while, it runs the pledge drive, right? Nobody likes the pledge drive. This is serious interruption. Can you imagine any other organization getting away with the pledge drive? Why does the pledge drive work for NPR? Because NPR provides such great value. Information, insights, and assistance that we tolerate the pledge drive. We not only tolerate the pledge drive, we give money. We give money. Wikipedia is the same way. Towards the fall, they run, I'm on the board of trustees of Wikipedia, there's a really ugly banner ad that says, click here if you want to support Wikipedia and donate money. What other organization could put that ugly banner in front of your search result and get away with it? Not only get away with it, we get $75 million that way. It's because people appreciate the value that Wikipedia has provided. So think of Wikipedia and NPR. Do you provide value with your social media? Do you earn the right to then promote? NPR model. That's what I call NPR model. You know what? Nobody likes the pledge drive. How many of you are sitting around saying, man, if I only had that Eton hand crank radio so I could know what's going to happen when I die, right? Nobody. Who cares about that radio? Nobody. But it's the information that NPR provides. Number 9. How to enchant people who you work for. I think the key is that you drop everything. When your boss asks you to do something, you drop everything. Doesn't matter if it's optimal, doesn't matter if it's fair. You just drop everything. Your boss wants to know that her or his needs are top priority. Again, I'm not saying it's optimal. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm telling you, this is what enchants people who you work for. Men in the audience, little piece of marital advice from someone who's still on wife 1.0. I would say that when your wife asks you to do something, you drop everything else. You do not spend any time trying to convince her why what she wants is less important than what you're doing, because it's not true, okay? Just do what she wants, marital bliss. Next thing is to prototype fast. Drop everything and get that prototype going. If your boss asks you to create a presentation, you drop everything, you prototype it really fast, you put some text, you put some placeholders, and then you go and you say to your boss, am I on the right track? There's 2 benefits of this. One is that you show your boss you really did drop everything, right? You prototype right away. Second thing is much higher probability that you'll have a good result because you got feedback early. Prototype fast. Third way to enchant your boss is to always deliver bad news early. The concept that you should deliver bad news at the last possible moment, because prior to the last possible moment, the miracle will occur and the bad news won't happen, is false. It just never goes down that way. You should always deliver bad news early. The earlier you deliver it, the less impact the bad news will have. You can always surprise your boss with good news. You should never surprise your boss with bad news. And number 10, how much time do I have? Because I lost track here.
You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes? Seriously?
Yeah.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
You're going to watch me end exactly on time. Now this is 4 minutes, including the time they took from me, or this is...
In that case, you probably have about 8 minutes.
Oh, okay. They were more than 4 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you calculate?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, number 10. How to enchant people who work for you. I think the key is in this book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And in this book, Daniel Pink basically says, pay people adequately. Duh. But then if you really want to enchant them, you want them to really love your company, you provide a map. You work for this company, you will master new skills. You will become a better employee. You'll be working autonomously. We don't breathe down your neck telling you what you do at every instance. And finally, you're working towards a higher purpose. You are changing the world. You're making people more creative and productive. You are giving people peace of mind in their medical needs, right? That's what you're doing. You're making the world a better place. So provide a map for your employees. Next thing you can do is empower action. To tell employees, we think you're good, we think you're smart, we're not going to second guess you, we're not going to check every decision. You're empowered to make the decision. And then the third way to enchant your employees is to suck it up. There was this great TV show called Dirty Jobs. And in Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe went around America and he did all the dirty jobs. Paint factory, poi factory, clean the outside of a skyscraper, get the dead rats out of the sewer, artificial insemination on chickens, cats, pigs, whatever it took. It was a fantastic show. And the reason why it was so enchanting is because Mike Rowe showed that he was willing to do the dirty job. And I think that is the key to enchanting your employees, that you show that you are willing to do the dirty jobs, that you don't ask your employees to do something that you would not do. So if you have programmers in Bangalore, you don't expect them to fly coach and you're flying first. That you don't expect them to do something that you would not do. You suck it up. And that is the key to all of enchantment. To summarize, because I know I have more than 4 minutes. To summarize, there are the three pillars. Remember the 3 pillars, all right? So, pillar number 1 is likability. Remember, Sir Richard Branson getting down on his knees so that I would fly on version. That's likability. Second pillar is trustworthiness. Zappos, pay shipping both ways. And the third one is competence. It's excellence. Think of the quality of the Apple products. Products that are deep, they're intelligent, they're complete, they're empowering, and they're elegant. So if you have a great product and you're likable and trustworthy, you would enchant people. And that's customer service right there. That's the art of enchantment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.